held accountable for their poor selection?
No, you have to be held accountable because they have a poor selection.
You see, the thing with that is there are poor choices within everything that you do, that you see, and that you listen to. You go to the supermarket, you go to the produce aisle, you pick the best options of fruit and vegetables to buy. When you go to the movies, you check the ratings to see the best possible movie you can see. And when you choose a job, you pick the best possible. So if a Pookie or a Ray Ray approaches a woman, she has the option to turn that man down. So even if there are poor choices, how is it the man's fault that women choose poorly?
Hey beautiful people, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel. My name is Maria David. So in today's video is a podcast video I saw on TikTok, and this conversation, we need to talk about it. Okay, for context, what the video is about is that Dr. Omar was saying that Black women act the way they act. They have these masculine energies just because of the way Black men must have treated them in the past. So they try to make it look as if they do not need men because they tend to take up all the responsibility in a relationship most of the time. And they tend to act this way just because of the way Black men must have treated them. And that's what Dr. Omar was trying to explain in the conversation. Let me roll up the clip for you all to watch, then we'll come back and discuss it.
And what I also tell Black women, if you're going to go get you an African man from the continent, you're going to have to understand that the way in which you talk to Black men in America will not be tolerated over there.
Why the fuck is it tolerated?
It's not tolerated here. That's what we're trying to tell them.
Well, over here, I want to say this to us, though, because we try to act like the way sisters treat us doesn't have a history that we are not at least partly responsible for. Let's be honest. The Black woman has had to hold down the Black house by herself, although imperfectly. She's had to do it by herself since the mass incarceration of Black males began in the 1970s. So when a sister says, I don't need a man, because she couldn't find one strong enough to hold her down. Or when you meet a woman and you say, sister, I'm strong enough to be your man. You ain't got to work or you ain't got to pay the bills or whatever. Pull back. I got you. And she can't do it because all the other men before you who disappointed her. So what I'm saying is, Black men, we got to be patient with our women because we created that personality.
We have to be held accountable for their poor selection?
No, you have to be held accountable because they have a poor selection. Yes, they have a role. Yes, they have responsibility. But as a man, as a leader, to say I can't fix this shit unless she changes, that's not the definition of a man.
I don't see. I think we're on two different accords. Like, I don't think we're saying that. What I'm saying is I'm capable of being that leader, that provider. I've worked hard in my life. We tell Black men that we have to now deal with masculine women, women with children.
Why is she masculine? Because she's had to raise the kids alone. Not one woman,
so
brother.
Tell me,
a whole community.
So you mean to tell me the only woman I can look forward in my life is a masculine woman that has kids by other men?
No.
That's what I have to look forward to?
But I'm telling you, mistakes made by Black men systemically gave rise to the conditions that allowed her to be masculine and made her end up with a man that you consider to be less than what he should be.
Right, I know you already have a lot of things running through your mind right now. What you have to say about this conversation, kindly put it down in the comment section. I would love to hear from you all. And of course, a lot of Black people came and they gave their 2 cents about this whole conversations. I'm going to roll a clip for you all, the stitches that I found on this conversation. So you guys just chill, relax, and continue watching.
Yes, they have a role. Yes, they have responsibility. But as a man...
Dr. Omar did a great job of explaining the problems in the Black community. But what a lot of the problem is in the Black community is individualism instead of collectivism. You're like crabs in the barrel. You like, I climbed high, oh well, we left the others behind. But that is not how you build a community. A community means you worried about everyone in the community. It means that you fix everything in the community. It means that you solve all the problems in the community, not just your problems. I would say that these new-aged men who say women don't walk in their feminism is the reason women can't walk in their feminism.
So you mean to tell me the only woman I could look forward in my life is a masculine woman that has kids by other men?
If you prefer a feminine black woman who doesn't have kids, date and marry a feminine black woman who doesn't have kids. This is not hard, but a lot of these child-free men will use the fact that they don't have kids as the carrot to take advantage of as many black women as they can. White men have no problem finding feminine black women who don't have kids. They have no problem finding these unicorns that black men can't seem to find to save their life. And a lot of these childless men, they're not childless because they want to be. A lot of them are unlikable. A lot of them are late bloomers. A lot of them don't know how to date. A lot of them don't know how to do a lot of things that are important to women. Besides running their mouth and looking down on people, they really don't have much to offer.
What I also tell black women, if you're going to go get you an African man from the continent, you're going to have to understand that
First of all, ignore this thing on my lip because I have a cold sore, so I have a patch over it. Second of all, go watch that video because I have a story. I went to a work function the other day with my boyfriend, and we were in a crowded place, and I had walked and I wasn't looking where I was going. And my boyfriend goes, "Stop." And he's yelled at me, right? And I almost ran into someone. And at first I was like, can you please just not yell at me like that, right? I got really triggered and I had to take a second and think about it. And when I asked him why he did that, he was like, well, you were going to run into someone and I didn't want you to get hurt, right? Well, in my past, I'm used to getting yelled at by men and them being aggressive or being mad at me. So that's immediately where my mind went. And I had to realize he was there to protect me. And I had to apologize for having that initial reaction because
You have to be held accountable for their poor selection.
No, you have to be held accountable because they have a poor selection.
Finally, Dr. Umar is clicking, okay? He's telling these young men the truth. And they still got this mentality that a woman should choose better, but yet have not provided a better selection to choose from. They are well aware that there are no good men in the community. There are men that prey on women. There are men that manipulate women. But yet, when that woman is victimized by those type of men, they still find a way to blame her, but not the men. And when we get self-esteem and we have standards and boundaries, you tell us it's unrealistic. Y'all get on my nerves.
Leader to say I can't fix this shit unless she changes, that's not the definition of it.
When a plane is going down, pilots are usually trying to do everything they can to make sure as many people on that plane survive as possible. They're not worried about their family. They're not worried about their kids. They're just worrying about trying to make sure that they bring as many people home as possible. And if they can be, one of those people, then great. And they will do that up until the plane goes up in flames and unfortunately people don't make it. Now I know some of y'all saying, Chaz, why are you talking about, planes? Because Dr. Umar is right. When he's right, he's kind of right. And in this situation, I'm so sick of seeing these dudes with these big ass mics in front of their face, sitting on these plush, comfortable couches, talking about how horrible women are. But then at the same time, they're calling themselves leaders. Sir, how are you a leader? What are you doing to actually solve anything? Who in your community looks up to you? If we did a deep dive into your life, how many of your ex-girlfriends could say that you were a good man? I'm pretty sure not a lot of them. Outside of your mama, how many people that you know will actually say you are a good man and a good leader who has a vision for people? I would probably say not many. So that's why I use the analogy of a plane or even the analogy of a company. When something happens at a company, even if the leader had nothing to do with it, the leader has to come out, take responsibility, and ensure the public that, they can believe in them and then present a vision for the future. If all you want to do is sit on a plush couch with a microphone and bash women, then you're not a leader. There's nothing proactive about that. There's nothing productive about that. Just my little 2 cents. What do I know?
way sisters treat us doesn't have a history that we are not at least partly responsible for.
So this right here is actually a huge talking point. It's something I've been experiencing lately since I've just like been in the hood because I'm from the suburbs, right? So like when it comes to like initial attraction, a lot of black women basically talk to black men like they're dogs. And low key, like when we were younger, we kind of like that because we want to prove them wrong. We want to show our masculinity and put them in their feminine or whatever it is. But mostly it's because like you're flirting with each other and that's all it is. And like for a lot of them, that literally works when it comes to them to getting partners and everything like this. I was even talking to my auntie before, like especially after being in the hood and actually like hearing what they'd have to deal with. I realized that like they actually straight up don't have good options to choose from. But even then, even when I do meet black women that are like African American black women that are feminine and very kind of very soft spoken, at a certain point it's like they don't know how to interact because they're used to dealing with a certain type of guy and they're used to dealing with like I guess being the leaders and teaching them about like all these high alkaline, high frequency, all this other stuff like that. They're so used to teaching that when they meet someone that already knows that stuff, they're kind of just like almost afraid to make conversation with me, it feels like. And even then, because we both have a history of being neglected and being abused, part of us still like being attracted to that type of quality, like being dismissed, being talked down to. A lot of black women in America still suffer from these traits. And so being patient with each other is definitely like one thing that everybody has to do when it comes to healing. But in my cases, I'm used to like all the other races, Filipino, like Asian, Latina, like I'm used to them like being feminine and kind to me. So it's just like I have expectations of how I need to be treated and how I need to be talked to. But black women really don't have a good reference point. And I'm emphasizing this a lot. They really, really don't. But personally, I feel like I'm doing my part, like at least in my individual lifestyle with the people that I've been meeting. So good for me, right? But in the large scheme of things, if you're a black man and you've already been healed and you are like coming out of this toxicity, then you got to start sitting down and talking with some of these women because like, yeah, it's Juneteenth. Like we got to do our part, guys.
Role. Yes, they have responsibility, but as a man,
y'all go back and watch that entire video. Dr. Umar dropping some gems, and I know a lot of people criticize him, but at least the man trying. A lot of people I feel like look to leaders or prominent people within the community and look at them to be perfect instead of being a human being. And a lot of people would rather sit back and criticize and talk about what they would do or what they would say instead of just picking up the slack and helping out where they can. And in the video, Dr. Umar is talking about how a lot of black men and black women are using each other as scapegoats for a lot of the systemic things that put us in our current position. And he also talks about in some of the other clips about how it's too much individualism within our community. Nobody is above or below anyone. We are all standing right beside one another. And I think that's something that we all need to come to realize and understand, that just because everybody has a lane or a role to play doesn't mean one is more important than the other.
and what I also tell black women, if you're going to go get you an African man from the continent, you're going to have to understand that.
I tried to watch the interview when Dr. Omar basically held black men accountable. It was refreshing. But one thing he cannot do is basically seem like a lot of African women are docile and submissive, and they let their men lead the household. When I tell you the African women that I encounter from Ghana, Rwanda, and Nigeria, they're not going to take or tolerate a lot of shit that men put out. I'm the man of the house. I'm this, I'm that. They don't do that. But because of their balance of being masculine and being feminine, it works for them. So I don't know, me as a person who has a father who's not from this country, why do you feel like that women in other countries are this and that? Because mind you have to think about why they are like that, because of patriarchy and because of capitalism and because of men want to rule over women, because men who wants to rule over women, they want control of their wombs. That's it. Because if you don't have control of a woman's womb, you have nothing. That's why they keep making these laws and blah 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 blah. And look at the Asian community, how women was like, I don't want to have any children. We're good. Those men are desperately, literally trying to convince women that being married and having kids is the right thing to do. I think because this is the time of the Aquarius, and the Aquarius sign is awakening. I think, and I believe that women are like, no. Story time. I had African man who looked at my refrigerator. I'm like looking at him like, why the fuck are you in my refrigerator? And he was like, he literally realized what I didn't have. So hour later, he literally brought me some fruits and vegetables. He said, you need to eat this, you need to do this, you need to do that. One thing I'm not going to do is put African men on the pedestal, but the ones I encounter, they're family oriented. They really are.
So let me also give my 2 cents, because these conversations also affect me as a Black woman. And I'm going to say, I feel like what Dr. Omar is saying is really right and correct. I feel like the way some men must have treated some women make them to have this fear just to trust other men when the real ones come. And some men were saying that, okay, are you supposed to blame men for their poor decision? If there was no poor decision, was there going to be a poor decision? There were no bad men out there. If there were not men that make women feel like they have to handle things by themselves, but they're going to be poor decision. I feel like that's what he's trying to say, and which I agree with him, because if there were not some men that treat women and they give you all those promises and make you feel like, oh, they're going to give you the world, and at the end of the day you tend to be the one that does everything, they are not going to be poor decisions. So now let's go back to the African men he was talking about. So African men, they were like the way some Black women treat some American Black men, they won't do that to African men. African men take care of their wives for their woman, might not be your wife, like your girlfriend, wives, and all of that. They do take care of their woman very well, I feel like, compared to African American men. So now, but what it is that some women, because your man is, as an African woman, because your man is taking care of you totally, and he has like authority over you, even your family doesn't have a say, because he's the one taking care of you like non-stop. So you don't have a say. You, even though he's not doing the right thing for you, you can't just leave because he has the authority. Because I feel like African men are doing that because of that. They want to have their ego. They want to have control over you as a woman. I feel like that's why African men are more like taking care of their woman and all of that. They give them money, And it's not even all African men that does that, but I feel like most African men, they do it just to have that ego, just to have that charge and tell sit down there, you can't go anywhere, and just for them to be able to do other things and not have a say, just because they are doing the right thing. They think they are doing the right thing. And this is a bad thing for women on the other hand, because women do not have power. They become very powerless when it comes to men like that. But I feel like that was then anyway. I feel like marriages now, it is not the way it was anymore. Women now are trying to work for themselves, try to be independent, try to have their own money, regardless of if their husband is rich or not, so that if anything happens, they can stand on their ground with their own money. So I feel like before, men will marry wives in African and they will tell you, stop your work, I just want you to have children. And that is what women do. They'll be like, oh, I have to respect my husband, he's providing already, I'm going to stop working, I'm going to have children. At the end of the day, when you guys change his whole attitude and everything, she has nowhere to go. She has to stay in the house, even with domestic violence, just because she doesn't have her own money. But now I feel like women are waking up in Africa and they're actually doing it right this way. They are trying to be independent, have their own money. So if there's any, violence or anything that has them to leave the marriage, they will leave standing with their head straight and strong. I would like to know what you all think in the comment section. I feel like this conversation is very interesting and I know you all will enjoy this. And thank you all so much for sticking to my video to this point, and I appreciate that. Kindly like, subscribe and share this video if you find it very helpful. And of course, I'm gonna see you all in my next one. Bye.